Rob, one of the movies that I know you in particular have been very excited about and a little bit bummed out that it got bumped, but it's the new James Bond film, No Time to Die.
Oh, come on, man.
Just a little bit. And listen, a lot of times these big movies, the actors don't see the movie before it actually premieres and comes out. I probably like 90% of the time they don't see the movie. However, some cast from the movie have seen it. They have watched it. As a matter of fact, she first appeared in Spectre. Bond girl Léa Seydoux had seen the movie. She's seen No Time to Die. And her reaction to it, it's short, but I found it interesting because I would not think of a reaction like this to a James Bond film. Here's her thoughts. There's a lot of emotion in this Bond. It's very moving. I bet you're going to cry because when I watched it, I cried, which is weird because I'm in the movie. Now, Rob, when we see this trailer to the Bond film, to No Time to Die, which, by the way, I think is fantastic, I get action and pump and excitement and all this kind of stuff. I don't think, well, I'm going to cry at the end of this movie. But you hear her say those words. How do you figure that's going to fit into this James Bond No Time to Die movie? And does that sound consistent for you, or does that sound a little odd to you?
Well, there is a James Bond movie that I have cried in the past, and that was, of course, on 1969's On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because at the end of that movie, Bond gets married, and then his wife gets assassinated by Blofeld at the very, very end of the film.
Right.
And it ends with Bond himself crying and holding his dead wife in his hands, and a police rolls up on him, and he's looking at the police officer trying to comprehend what's happened, and he says she's going to be all right, really. We have all the time in the world. And then the Bond theme kicks in over the gunshot in the front glass that killed her of the car that they were in. And man, dude, I got to tell you, talk about waterworks, cry time. If this movie ends like that, and I would assume that there's got to be some kind of a vibe, an On Her Majesty's Secret Service vibe, one that makes me sad, but two that gets me really excited now, because if a Bond film can generate that kind of emotion, it means you had to become emotionally invested in the film during the course of it. And it just, I always get excited for James Bond movies, but I have extremely high hopes for this Bond film, more so than I've had in quite some time. And coming off the disappointment 5 years ago of Spectre, I'm really hoping that this movie, obviously it's the last Daniel Craig Bond film, I want this to be stratospheric in terms of awesomeness. And it just, if Léa Seydoux says it, I'll listen or do whatever she ever says or thinks.
All right, so let me bring up something that is unthinkable. Unthinkable. When you hear Léa say, "I cried at the end," you mentioned this is Daniel Craig's final outing as James Bond. He has actually become my favorite James Bond, oddly enough. And that's not a what have you done for me lately just because he's the latest guy to do it. I legitimately love him. I think because he is, like, to me, the perfect hybrid of the two archetype James Bonds. He's the suaveness of Roger Moore. He's the badassery of a Sean Connery, kind of rolled in one package. That's why I've really liked him. But as his last film, crying at the end, Rob, what are the chances they do the unthinkable and actually kill James Bond at the end of this film? Is that somewhere you think they could go?
Well, to be honest, I think they do kill James Bond. And
really?
I'll tell you why I think that, because I know that I'd read once that Danny Boyle, part of Danny Boyle's problem, or he was going to originally make this movie and he left over the proverbial creative differences. And I had heard that was his idea. Now, in this film, we saw, in the Daniel Craig series, we saw Bond's first outing. We saw him become a 00 at the beginning of Casino Royale. And then this film, over the course of 5 movies, has sort of shown his life. And like now in this film, he's retired. So in a way, this is sort of a Bond continuity that's closed off from the other continuities, other than the fact that M was M, Judi Dench was M. And it wouldn't surprise me if this has a comment on, because that doesn't mean they can't go back and restart the franchise with somebody else playing Bond. because already Bond is retired in this film. So if they bring James Bond back and he's in his prime, it's just a Bond movie that takes place within the life of Bond. Whereas this film has really dealt with the character's progression from beginning to end, and it makes sense to me that they would kill off Bond in this movie. And I also think that the Michael Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, who control the franchise, it's been the family business since 1962. I have often said that they're done with Bond. This is it. They're making their statement. Like, I think Michael Wilson's 77 or something. Like, why do they want to keep making these movies? It took 5 years between Spectre to get this movie made. And if Michael Wilson, they take that long, he's going to be in his 80s. And I just think this is a great place to end their series, end their tenure, and probably sell the franchise a la Lucas to someone else. And it gives a perfect way of passing this franchise along. I mean, someone's going to have to pay for it, obviously, but they can start anew. And I think it's time. I think it would be sort of fitting if the Broccoli family run on Bond went from 62 to 2020. It's 25 official films. What a great cinematic legacy that they've left to the world. And if they started again, I don't know if they could ever reach the heights that they've reached with Craig. I mean, Craig's portrayal is so beloved, and I think it would be kind of fitting. So it wouldn't surprise me, John, if Bond dies.
See, I think here's what I think. I think there's a bunch of people out there right now who are kind of theorizing that, what they're going to do is they're going to kill Bond, and Lashana Lynch is going to take over the franchise. But Lashana Lynch is not James Bond. Lashana Lynch is the new, person with the employee number of 007. She's not
right.
that. And Barbara Broccoli, I keep saying Broccoli, it's Broccoli.
Yeah.
Barbara Broccoli has made clear, listen, James Bond is a man. All right, let's just be clear about that. He can be white, he can be black, he can be whatever, but James Bond is a man. That's what Barbara says. Her saying that, because you remember we talked about her making that comment the other day. Her saying that leads me to believe she's got future plans. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm dead wrong on that. Maybe I'm reading way too much into that. But I don't think they kill him. But you know what's great? I think for the first time ever, this could be the first time ever we're going into a James Bond film where we really don't know if he lives or dies at the end. That's never been a question, right? That's never been a question. That's obviously James Bond does not die at the end. This is the first time I'm ever going into a James Bond movie where I legit don't know if he's going to live or die.
Well, the title of the film, No Time to Die, there's never any time to die, but death is inevitable. So, John, I think that Bond has put off his death for a long time, but there's only so many times you can cheat death or fight your way out of it. And there's no time to die, but the time comes for every man and every woman and every person. So I think, in terms of knowing what Cary Fukunaga does, watching True Detective Season 1, which I think is a masterpiece, and Beasts of No Nation and things that he's done, it wouldn't surprise me because I think that kind of mortality, and there's a little spirituality in there, I could see that becoming a part of what this movie's about. And maybe when they talk about test audiences responding badly, maybe that's what they responded badly to.
And by the way, I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. Because I never heard Barbara Broccoli say that. I never heard I never, unless I hear an actual studio person say that, I never believe any reports of, did you hear there was a test screen? I don't buy it.
No, it's true because somebody would be there and write about it on the internet, and nobody has. Yeah. It's not on Reddit. It's nowhere.
So the question here is, guys, what do you make of her comments about she wept in this movie? Do you think that could be foreshadowing the death of James Bond? Maybe not. Maybe it's something else. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys.